guys, I'm Mike Caviani, Dog Behavior Program Manager here at Austin Pets Alive. So in this video, we're going to be covering how to teach sits with distance. So you've seen how to teach sits already. We've talked about kind of our philosophy again on why we teach it that way. We've talked about how to use that gentle but steady pressure and release, and how we teach the dogs that sit means sit until they've heard their release command. We've got a video for duration, we have a video for distractions, and now this is a video on distance. So when we say sits with distance, that pretty much means stay. But we've talked about, we teach them that sit means sit until they've heard free. So rather than adding another word, we want to cut down on that redundancy by just simply reminding them. So we've talked also about reminders and how that's different than recommanding. If you need a refresher on that, just go ahead and watch that video. But we want to remind our dog before we move away from them. So rather than saying stay, we're just going to say sit or down, whatever position you have them in, and then move away from your dog. When you get to the distance you wanted to get to, mark, yes, or click, then go back to your dog and reward them. So try to get into a rhythm, try to get into a flow. Remind, move, reinforce. Remind, move, reinforce. When I say reinforce, I just simply mean either reward the dog for holding his sit, or go to your leash pressure, that gentle on-off, if they break their sit. Now with distance, a lot of people make the mistake of doing it off-leash first. But you might get a few good repetitions in, but then the dog breaks his sit. But now you can't back it up, right? The dog is loose, and you can't necessarily make him go back into holding that sit because he's off-leash. You're going to be forced to, recommand a bunch of times. So that's why we're going to teach you how to start on a regular 6-foot leash, how to get to the end of your leash, how to do a full circle around your dog. And that's about the most you can do on a regular size leash. So then we'll talk to you about how to maybe make that even more proficient by adding more distance, getting a long line. You can add distractions to your distance, right? You can add all three together. We've got duration, we've got distractions, we've got distance. So you can add them all together to make a rock star of a dog who can hold his sit with you 20 feet away from him and a bicycle whizzing by. That's pretty dang cool. So this will be Amy and Tug working on sits with distance. We'll see how it goes. Thanks, guys. All right, so Amy now is working on distance. So when we say sits with distance, mainstream guys, that means stay. But we don't say stay because that would be kind of redundant, because we teach that if you haven't been told free, you gotta hold position. So we just remind the dog to sit. And we've talked about reminders already earlier. So Amy is reminding Tug, moving away, and then marking when she gets to where she was going. Check out our video on marking if you're curious about what that means. And then rewarding him when she gets back to him. So the goal first, when you're working on distance, is to always start off on a regular length leash, a 6-foot leash. So first you should be able to get to the full length of your leash. Now he popped up, pressure on, pressure off, and then we'll get right back to it. Remind, make your move, reinforce. So that just means, tell him sit to make sure he knows you're leaving. Get to where you thought you wanted to get to. Mark, tell him, yes, that's what we wanted from you. Go back to your dog, and then reward him once you get back to your dog. So a lot of people make the mistake of, doing this off-leash first, right? They think they can start doing it off-leash, but then the dog breaks position, and then they kind of learn, oh, okay, this is kind of optional. So that's why we're starting on a leash first. Yes. Nice. So the farthest you can get to on a leash is the full length of your leash, and then getting a full circle around your dog. So that's what Amy is working on at this moment. Yes. Nice. So think about that rhythm. Remind, move, reinforce. Remind, move, reinforce. Reinforce just means reward the dog for holding it, or go ahead and step in and add that little leash pressure to get them back into position if they're not holding it. So the dog, he's going to make the choice he makes. You're just supporting him through this exercise to make the right choice, and you're just being very clear on what his options are. So we're going to remind him. Yes. Amy turned her back, moved away, mark, and then go back and reward. Sit. So So he's doing pretty good. He's had a couple pop-ups, but that doesn't mean he's not getting it, right? It just means he, for a moment, got a little confused. So Amy cleared that up for him. And now we're working on getting that full circle, which is great. He looked behind and then held his sit. That's very cool. And then mark and reward. So remember, this is about approximations, right? You're not going to have every dog be able to go from standing next to him to going to a full circle, right? So Amy's actually demoing that now. So some dogs at the very beginning, see how Amy took like this little tiny step away from Tug. So you don't go for the home run right away, right? When you're doing this from, kind of from scratch, you may literally have to take just one little step and then capture the behavior before he breaks. So capture the good behavior by marking and rewarding right away. So Amy's demoing that. Tug's pretty advanced at this point from what it looks like, which is great. But Amy's demoing how to take those little approximations to build to the more advanced pieces. He may not have been able to do, 4 feet away in one shot, but if you segment those 4 feet into smaller, quicker steps, that might be a good way to support him and make it clear to him on how to get to farther steps in the process. So let's show, let's try for a full end result on leash. The farthest we can get to the full length of our leash and then the full circle. So this is, what you're aiming for on leash. This is the most you can do on a regular length leash is full length and then full circle at that length. If you can get that consistently, so pressure on, pressure off, no big deal, right? Amy's just going to go right back to it. Just a little blip, no big deal. I think he can do it. And you could also decide to add a reminder during the circle. You could say sit right there. So Amy said sit as a reminder as she got right behind him, because that's probably the hardest part there is. So that's a good call to, again, continue to support him through the process. So that right there, you guys, that's full length of the leash and then a full circle around the dog. When you can consistently get that, then you're ready for 2 things. You're ready for new environment, right? So that the dog generalizes to more than just the first place you're teaching. And you're also ready to probably extend that leash out. So he got up, pressure on, pressure off. So you can go ahead and get a long line and do this in a safe area. So Amy, so we know he knows his stuff, right? But Amy's gonna now probably need to scale it back a little bit because he's a little confused. So we're gonna scale it back and get some successful repetitions before building to longer steps. But again, when you have a dog who's ready, who you've been able to successfully get as far as you can get from them on your leash, buy a long line, buy a long line, get a 20-foot, 30-foot leash, make sure you're again in a safe area, and work on building longer and longer distances so that you can make your dog the best he can be. Pressure on, pressure off. That's okay. If he goes into a down, we don't mind that at all. We're training them to be good pets, right? I don't know any adopter who's ever called us for help because his dog is supposed to be sitting but goes into a down. We don't mind that. We're not doing competition obedience, so we don't mind that at all. Good. Very nice. All right, so that's a pretty good intro into working on distance with your sits or your downs. Thanks, guys.